Hey guys, my name is Dr. Film, and no, I'm not qualified to be a doctor. Before we begin, you should know that this review will contain no spoilers. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe for reviews and more. And you should also know that the movie I'm reviewing is rated R, so viewer discretion is advised. And so, without further ado, let's take a look at Napoleon.
Cast and characters.
For this category, let's first take a look at our main character, Napoleon Bonaparte, played by Joaquin Phoenix. And he was pretty fantastic in this movie. He was intriguing, menacing, and complex. You would be invested in his journey in becoming an emperor because you're dying to know why he's so keen on serving his country so much. Although I have to admit, while Joaquin's portrayal as Napoleon Bonaparte was great, he does come off as just another power-hungry dictator that you've seen before in countless other movies and such. As for Empress Josephine, played by Vanessa Kirby, she did pretty well with her role in this movie, and her chemistry with Joaquin Phoenix was so intoxicating and believable. Although, while the relationship was compelling, it still wasn't enough to keep me invested, because this is the kind of toxic relationship that you've seen before in other movies and such. You know, the type of couples that hate each other but love each other, this and that, this and that. So there's not really anything new or profound about their relationship. A little leeway I'll give them is their performances in this movie. They're not exactly slacking off or anything. They do look very committed to their roles. And I mean very, very committed.
That's what I'm talking about.
Come on, dude, don't be so gross.
Respect the game.
Oh my god.
Okay, let's move on.
Cinematography and score.
Now you have to give it to the director and the cinematographer for creating some pretty interesting visuals, especially in the battle sequences. They were gritty, mesmerizing, and they did well making these battles look pretty dang realistic, especially since there are other movies out there that uses CGI excessively. For example, As for the music was pretty well composed. For instance, the theme of Napoleon Bonaparte. I can't exactly remember which scene it was, but when he came in on screen, the music speaks everything about who he is. It's almost like you're seeing things from his perspective, like you're feeling what he's feeling, and at the same time, you can't help yourself but find this music so daunting and chilling. I swear, man, I'm not making this up. Just take a listen to this and tell me yourself that you're not intimidated just by listening to this music.
You should have seen your face.
Don't judge me. Let's move on.
The story.
Now the story focuses on Napoleon Bonaparte's rise in becoming an emperor, and his eventual downfall. And it also focuses on his personal relationship with Josephine. And I know what you're probably thinking right now. Well, does it do it? Does this film do it justice, retelling the story of Napoleon Bonaparte? Well, to answer your question, no, it doesn't. It was, well, there's one word for it. It was, quite messy. Yeah, as it turns out, 2 hours and 38 minutes wasn't enough to retell the entire life story of Napoleon Bonaparte. And that's not all. I discovered that Ridley Scott will release a 4-hour director's cut of his movie that will be streaming on Apple TV+.
What?
This movie was initially 4 hours long, and they cut it down to 2 hours and 38 minutes. Yet they decided to make a movie instead of a TV series. How does that even make sense? Well, this explains a lot of things, like why this story failed on so many levels. And if I'm being completely honest, this movie isn't the first to attempt to do a retelling of Napoleon Bonaparte. Not to mention, we have seen these kinds of themes and ideas before, about dictatorship, toxic relationships, sacrificing soldiers, you know, that kind of thing. Basically, there's nothing in the story that will make this film stand out more. Overall, my friends, this movie was not exactly my cup of tea. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this movie was a waste of my time. And I'm not saying this movie was outright terrible. There are some things in this film that you might appreciate, such as the performances, the cinematography, the music, the size, the scale, you name it. But I'm afraid you can't ignore the issues that you may come across in this movie. For instance, there are so many plot points and historical events all jammed into this movie. The pacing was uneven, and while the relationship between Napoleon and Josephine was interesting, it still wasn't enough to keep me invested. Especially when you consider the fact that Ridley Scott will be releasing his 4-hour director's cut on Apple TV+. Until that happens, what we have here is a 2-hour and 38-minute runtime movie that is completely messy and disorganized. Now yes, despite the many issues that this film has, I'm still glad I watched this film. With so many action movies and superhero movies, this one was a nice change of pace. With all that said, I give Napoleon a 7.5 out of 10. Well guys, that's the end of my review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like, and please follow me on Instagram for updates on my channel, and you can also follow me on TikTok for trailer reactions and more. And as always, I will see you guys at our next appointment.